Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel, Whispers of Turkish Stars. Everything you need to know is in this video, and if you enjoy it, remember to like and subscribe. You can also support us more by tapping the join button below. Thank you, and let's dive in. In the last few hours, the entertainment scene in Turkey has been wrapped in a fog of shock and fascination after a moment that no one expected from one of the most guarded names in showbiz, Erkan Meriç. What started as a whisper, barely a ripple across sets and coffee shops, erupted into a tidal wave of emotion and speculation. The actor, celebrated for holding the line between his career and private world with almost stoic discipline, chose to step across it. For months, rumors swirled, questions multiplied, and fans dissected every glance, every silence. Today, Erkan stopped the guessing game and addressed what many had tiptoed around: his relationship with the luminous and equally in-demand actress, Hzal Subaşı. It happened without the velvet curtain and scripted lights. In a spur-of-the-moment encounter with journalists and fans, no press kit, no rehearsed monologue, Erkan paused, gathered himself, and let out the words that would ping across phones in seconds. "This isn't easy for me," he admitted, voice steady but eyes showing the weight of it all, "but I can't keep quiet any longer." That line, simple and heavy, ricocheted through social feeds, turning into the headline of the hour, then the day. The air, people said, felt like it could crack. His gaze, usually so resolute, carried a tenderness and a fatigue that only come after carrying something too precious and too heavy for too long. After a careful silence, he opened up. There were rumors he wanted to bury, speculations he refused to validate for months, and the swirl of chatter that kept pulling the private into the public. He spoke about boundaries and the sanctuary he tries to protect. He acknowledged that the shield he set around his life might have been perceived as arrogance by some, but to him it was devotion to the parts of life that can't be performed, only lived. He spoke of his bond with Hazal in a way that felt unfiltered. Their connection has been a journey that outsiders could never truly map. To him, the details weren't for the crowd, they were promises and understandings, built in late-night conversations and quiet mornings. "The narratives people stitch together," he said, "rarely match reality. What's lived away from cameras is always more layered and far more fragile than the images that circulate online." People close to Erkan have shared that this wasn't a decision he made in a single burst of impulse. It was long weeks of sleepless nights, of circling the same questions, of reaching out for professional guidance so he wouldn't drown in the noise. According to someone described as part of his inner ring, he sought help to navigate the emotional and media pressure, the constant tug-of-war between personal conscience and public expectation. Along the way, he was adamant about one thing: respect. Whatever he would say would honor Hzal and the time that bound them. He has often told those near him that Hzal was a lighthouse for him during a complicated period of his life. Her patience, her gentleness, and her ambition kept him grounded when he threatened to drift. Once his words found their way online, the digital tide was unstoppable. Within minutes, hashtags tied to his confession climbed the trending lists, especially on Twitter and Instagram. Clips of his brief statement were edited, subtitled, slowed down for analysis, and reposted thousands of times. The responses split like a river meeting stone. Some voices applauded him for daring to speak in a world that punishes vulnerability. Others asked why it took this long, as if timing alone could rewrite the truth. A louder group stepped into the debate with suspicion, wondering if this was a polished move to soften stalled deals or realign relationships with producers and brands. The comments poured in: admiration, doubt, relief, worry. The internet talked like it never runs out of breath. On Hazal's side, silence reigned. Not a post, not a hurried statement, not even a cryptic song in a story. And yet, the whispers came anyway. Those who claim to know her say she wasn't surprised by Erkan's words. Rumor has it that the two had a pact from the beginning: what was between them would remain shielded from the spectacle. But the clamp on privacy, if the whispers are to be believed, grew harder to hold as weeks passed and the pressure mounted. Outside noise can corrode even the strongest agreements. Those closest to the pair insist that what looks like distance from the outside is, at times, a form of care, choosing not to expose something delicate to the harsh light of public opinion. Industry observers weighed in almost immediately. Some argued that Erkan's transparency could soften tensions with decision-makers and help open doors that had grown cautious. Honesty, they say, becomes a currency when mystery starts to look like indifference. Producers and creative teams watch these storms closely. A confession that humanizes a star may refresh their image in boardrooms and pitches. Still, there's a flip side that no one ignores. Once real life blends too openly with a screen persona, it becomes harder to separate characters from confessions. Casting might be influenced by how audiences read interviews, not scripts. Future collaborations, especially those that pair Erkan and Hzal on the same set, will likely be measured with extra care, balancing storylines against the pulse of public interest. Meanwhile, fans have turned into careful archivists. Timelines are dissected. Old interviews are replayed with new ears. Every filtered photo, every quiet story, even the slightest tweak in a profile picture, everything is catalogued and debated. Some think the two have been sending coded harmonies across their posts. Others spot signs of distance. Over the last few days, people claiming to have crossed paths with Erkan and Hazal say the tension in their orbit was becoming unsustainable, as if a conversation was overdue and gravity couldn't be dodged. According to these accounts, what happened today wasn't a stunt. It was a release. The ripple effect has already reached casting rooms and PR offices. In the wake of his statement, questions swarmed. Would they be willing to share the screen again, or would that be a flame too close to kindling? Would one or both step back from projects to let the noise fade? Or would the industry lean in, inviting them to channel this surge of attention into something electric on camera? Television panels debated the possibilities all afternoon, and opinion columns burned with hot takes by night. There's nothing the industry loves more than a story, and this one is sprawling, intimate, and messy. Perfectly human. Media analysts have taken a step back to look at the wider picture. They say this could be a pivot point in how Turkish artists protect their personal lives under the weight of collective curiosity. Erkan's line, "This isn't easy, but silence has its own cost," is already being studied as a case of how even the most private can be pushed to speak, not to feed the beast, but to quiet it. And there's another lesson tucked inside. Vulnerability, when wielded carefully, can be both shield and bridge, a way to reclaim narrative without surrendering everything. What is certain is that this story doesn't stop with a single afternoon speech. Each hour seems to bring fresh whispers, thoughtful threads, and conspiracy-laced theories. People are recalling the early days when Erkan and Hzal were first paired, when chemistry leaped off the screen and fans rooted for a love that might have been scripted, might have been real, or might have been both. They remember the sideways glances at events, the warmth of backstage photos, the careful distance that sometimes followed. Today nudges those memories back to the surface and asks people to see the two not just as the characters they played, but as people who are allowed to love in complicated, grown-up ways. Those in advertising and branding have their calculators out, too. A confession like this can recalibrate market value, sometimes unexpectedly. Some brands prefer pristine walls, others court authenticity, even if it's imperfect, because it translates to trust. And audiences, it turns out, are rarely simple. They root for honesty, but they also crave mystery. The dance between exposure and restraint is delicate, and Erkan's choice throws that balance into the spotlight. His team will likely spend the next weeks making careful moves. Hazal's camp, with its measured silence, will set its own rhythm. For now, there's a quiet admiration for how measured he was. He didn't list grievances. He didn't throw names. He talked about care. He talked about time. He avoided the hungry details people always demand and offered something else instead, a boundary that is visible and explained. For people who remember past moments when stars overshared and regretted it, this felt different, less like a storm and more like the opening of a window, letting some air in without dismantling the house. Still, what everyone wants to know is what Hzal will say, if she says anything at all. There are voices urging her to speak, to match his clarity with her own. Others say she owes nothing to anyone beyond herself. It's a divide that goes beyond fans of the couple. It taps into a broader question about what public figures deserve to keep. If she remains quiet, some will read it as strength. If she speaks, others will praise her for setting the record straight. Either way, the conversation turns around the choices they make as individuals who happen to live under a magnifying glass. Tonight, people are replaying the moment in which Erkan steadied his breath and said what he said. They're looking for clues in his tone, in his pause, in the way he looked down between sentences as if measuring what was safe to reveal. They're turning the camera back on themselves and asking why it matters so much, why two people's private decisions can send a country's media into a spiral. Maybe it's because love, when it's real, invites us to care. Or maybe it's because stars like them become mirrors for our own stories, breakups, reconciliations, the feeling of wanting to protect something fragile from the world. If you followed their journey, you know this storyline is not new, but it is newly bright. What happens from here is a question that even the insiders can only answer in maybes. Will there be a joint appearance? A statement crafted by both, setting the record straight? Or will they step across the storm in different directions, choosing peace over spectacle? Whatever unfolds, the industry will pay attention, because attention is the coin of the realm and Erkan and Hzal have it in abundance right now. So tell us what you think. Did Erkan make the right call in finally addressing what everyone kept whispering about? Should Hazal break the silence or keep doing exactly what she's doing? How do you see this affecting their careers, their choices, and the roles they take next? Share your thoughts in the comments, we read every single one. And don't forget, here at Whispers of Turkish Stars, we track every beat of the story as it unfolds, with care and detail. Subscribe, like, leave your take below, and if you want to support the channel even more, hit the join button to become part of our community. Fresh developments, new revelations, and the angles nobody else catches are on the way. Welcome to Whispers of Turkish Stars, where you never miss a moment. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.